Welcome to Living Your Greatness. Each episode, we bring on great people to inspire you to achieve your greatness. We discuss topics all related to health and wellness. Listen to world-class stories, learn valuable lessons, and turn knowledge into action. It is now time for you to unlock your inner greatness. Welcome back, everyone. Today we got a special guest. We got Ray Zahab. And so today we're actually meeting with Ray. That's because Ray has a really interesting background. He's known as like an ultra runner. He's also known as, a Canadian adventurer. And he's also a father as well, too. And so Ray, I believe, has a lot of good stories to share. And I actually believe that he's definitely achieved greatness, especially on like the physical wellness side. So Ray, welcome to the show today. Ray.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And Ray, if you could just start off and just kind of share with everyone like a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm an explorer. I pretty much, what I guess you could say, I specialize in. So there's all types of exploration, right? There's mountain climbers and ocean rowers and all this jazz. I sort of like, I call myself like a horizontal explorer. I cross vast geographies on foot. So I've crossed some of the hottest deserts on Earth on foot, and I've crossed some of the coldest regions of the planet on foot. And so typical expeditions for me can range from days to weeks to months. I've ran or trekked over 17,000, actually I'm getting closer to 20,000 kilometers across pretty much all the larger deserts on the planet. I'm missing one or two, and in many of these colder places. And then I connect my expeditions to classrooms using satellite. So while I'm out there, for example, I ran the length of the Atacama Desert, which was around 1,200 kilometers. I crossed it in the middle of summer in 2011. That's in Chile, driest place on Earth. And the entire expedition, I was, at the end of every day, which would range from 60 to 80 kilometers a day, depending on how tricky the navigation was or how big the mountains were or the valleys or the salt pans that I'd have to cross, or the sand dunes for that matter. Then if I got into camp at a reasonable time, we'd set up and we'd upload content, and I would have, basically video conferences with students, which was just totally rad. And so I connect my expeditions with students. And so that's another thing that I do. And then I also have a charity called Impossible to Possible, where I take young people on expeditions around the world. They're learning based. The co-founder is a guy named Bob Cox. We're best friends. And so we've been doing this for many, many years. And there's we've done 15, I think now, 14, 15 youth expeditions to remote areas like the Amazon jungle, Bolivia. And so these youth are between the ages of 16 and 21. And they go on these expeditions and they run, of course, but they also teach, and they share a curriculum that is based in the place that they're in. So, for example, going to the Amazon jungle and studying biodiversity and learning from the indigenous peoples that live there about biodiversity, and sharing that with tens of thousands of students who will follow the expeditions online. And it's 100% free. Everything we do there is free. I'm a volunteer. That's the other part of my life. And then I do other things as well. But there you go. That's kind of what I do.
So, everyone has a story. And so you're giving us a background of what you're currently doing. But everyone has a story, whether it's, how they got into fitness or why, for example, they are someone who is very active. So for you, Ray, what is your story? How did you...
Well, yeah, that's a really long story, right? And to be honest with you, I started, my journey in the things that I'm doing as someone who was rather sedentary, smoking a pack or two a day, many, many years ago. I'm 52 now. So this was like pre-30. So a lot of us go through sort of that rough patch, or however you want to say it. We all go through challenges in our lives. And for me, it was just a time in my life where I was no longer satisfied, feeling like crap all the time, living the life that I was living without any passion or anything else. And, I've often said that, some of the most difficult things that we go through, the challenges that we face in our lives, are very relative to us as individuals. So what's difficult for you or me is a very individual thing. And so for you to try and describe to me what you're going through or what you're feeling is very difficult. You can share, but to really understand, like, it's inside you, right? It's how you feel. And so I was at a point where I was like, all right, like, this just isn't working anymore. And I have a younger brother who's an amazing athlete. And he was totally stoked. He was in the outdoors all the time. He's doing stuff all the time. He was a climber, a mountain biker, a runner, and he was into all of these sports he was so inspiring to me that I decided that maybe I would try and do some of the things he does. And that sort of got me started. That's what led me into this crazy world of adventure. And one thing led to another. And then I discovered ultra running. And then, I started racing in ultra marathons, and it grew from there.
That's great. So it's kind of that lifestyle shift change, right? Of kind of seeing where you weren't super happy at the time, and then finally telling yourself, all right, no, this is going to change, and this is going to change now. So how have you been able to cultivate, a healthy relationship with exercise now? Could you walk us through that kind of process? Because, we can now fall in love with fitness or do things, for our own health. And then all of a sudden we stop and we go back to our old habits. How have you created a formula that has led you to success?
Well, I mean, it's not really a sort of a recipe or a formula. I would say that, I've done so many expeditions now, and I'm very passionate about keeping my foundation going. My foundation, Impossible Possible, relies on me doing my expeditions and the relationships I build with sponsors and everyone else to keep our youth expeditions free. I'm also guiding a lot now, right? So I have a guiding business as well, where I take adults on their own expeditions around the world. So, it's purposeful for me to stay in shape. And the older I get, I still have a couple of things on my bucket list that I want to do. So the older I get, the more I pay attention to what I'm eating, how I'm training, and those sorts of things. So it's kind of like a chicken or egg thing, but the end result is I have to I realize that there is a accepted cost to want to do the things I do. And that accepted cost is a dedication to health, and that's physical and mental, and being willing to really stick to something.
What has been the greatest result that really made you realize this is why I do it, and this is why I will always continue to do it?
Well, just being on any one of the expeditions that I'm on and communicating with students, and they're so stoked to know what I'm seeing around the next sand dune or iceberg or mountain or whatever, right? I mean, they're just that excitement of adventure, and then I'm so fortunate to be in these places so remotely. And the excitement that students get from me being on my adventures, I mean, that's the great thing, right? And that's what really compels me. And it's been sort of the greatest gift from what I do. And also, I have to say, seeing in my own daughters, a love for the outdoors. They love getting out there, skiing, running. They're amazing trail runners, paddlers. And so it's part of them now too, being in the outdoors and adventure. And so that's like a huge thing, that they love it with no pressure. I mean, it's not, like, they don't have to love this stuff, but they just happen to. So that's exciting for me.
It sounds like what you have done in your own life that's made you so attracted to being active. It's all about the adventure, right? And it sounds like that's what you do as well, not only with yourself, but as well as your students and as well as your family as well too. And I think that is so great. And so if we were to think about, all these adventures that you've done, what has been the adventure that has stood out for you most, Ray?
Well, that's a tough one, to be honest with you, to answer that. My goodness, they've all got complexities about them that make them unique. So to pick any one adventure is really, really difficult for me. But I would say that, if anything, like, through everything, I've learned, and I've said this too many times, that running has been my greatest teacher. Like, adventure has been my greatest teacher. It's taught me things about myself and about things that I think apply to every one of us. That, for example, everyone is capable of their own personal version of extraordinary. So, every one of us I mentioned before that the most difficult challenges we face in life are very relative to us as individuals. Well, so are the great things. So are the great things that you achieve in your life. I mean, you can't really compare to someone else. Like when you do something or you accomplish something that's been a goal for so long, how that truly feels inside you is very difficult to describe to someone else. So knowing that and appreciating that fact over the years, I've learned so much about myself that I find, in a lot of ways, are very straight human things that are common among all of us, like what I just said, or that each of us is capable of doing something extraordinary in our lives. And we all have choices that we can make. And it doesn't have to be running across a desert. It can be anything. It could be trying to play a piece of music for the first time, or cooking something new, or stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that you're not necessarily comfortable with. These are all, challenges that can bring great rewards personally.
I definitely agree with in terms of, how do you apply to anything that you do in your life? How do you make anything in art? How do you make anything fun or special or rewarding? Whether it's super scary and you're kind of fearing it, or whether it's even, pretty simple, right? But taking that leap to just try. And so, you were explaining us before, how you've started Impossible to Possible. You kind of explained a little bit about what the foundation does. Why is this foundation so important to your heart?
Well, it's an extension of what I do, right? And so I really want young people to get to experience the same things that I do, be on an adventure and learn the same things that I have learned about myself. I want them to learn about those things. And I also want them to be able to share those things with the students who are following along, right? So it's sort of like a full circle thing.
Where are most of your students coming from?
Well, it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. And, the age range is 16 to 21 years of age. The expeditions take place typically when I'm not doing my own expeditions, obviously. And we typically run 1 or 2 trips a year, depending. Now, obviously, we've been in a global pandemic, so we haven't been traveling. But we are planning the next youth expedition, and youth ambassadors have been picked. And so, we're really excited to make that happen.
That's amazing. And what type of impact are you trying to have?
I'm just trying to get young people out there on these expeditions. I'm trying to make sure it stays funded. I'm just working hard every day to make sure that, that they get an opportunity to go on one of these expeditions and experience something amazing. It's what I love to do. And it's the passion part of my job. The other aspects, like I get to speak all over the world at corporate events, and I love sharing stories about adventure with people and connecting with new people. So that's great too, right? So I think first and foremost right now, we've got this pandemic. We got to get through this. And when we get through this, then I really want to start to, focus on growing some of the programs.
If someone's looking to start to get into, just being more active or having a healthier lifestyle, what would you say to them? What would be your recommendation or kind of tips to them?
Well, I was asked actually a very similar question yesterday on another podcast. And I said to them, somebody reached out to me recently. I've told this story a few times, I think, on a few different podcasts, but somebody reached out to me recently on one of the social media platforms. And they said, hey, listen, I've been following your posts for some time, and I'm not a runner, but, during the pandemic, I've really been sort of like focused on social media, and I'm reading all these posts, and I'm kind of inspired. I really want to try, but I don't even own a pair of running shoes. I don't even know what to do. Like, I'm a very sedentary person, practically parked on the couch every day. And I said, well, listen, you're not going to build Rome in a day. And every marathon, every run begins with the first step. So I said, day one, get off the couch, walk to your door, put your shoes on. Whatever shoes you have, because if you don't have running shoes, put whatever on you got, and then take your shoes off and walk back to the couch. That's the end of day one. It's like commit to something. Day two, repeat the same process, but then go outside the front door, walk to the end of your laneway or your block, and then turn around and come back to the house. Day three, go a little further. Maybe go walk to your local running store if it's close by, or keep extending your walks, right? Until you get to that point where you're accepting one piece at a time and you're building on it. And you look back over the course of a month and you're like, wow, I can't believe where I'm at right now. So incremental change, it's commitment, take a chance, then incremental change. And big things happen. Little increments add up to big things.
That's great advice. My last question I have for you, Ray, is if there's anything else that you want to add right now to this conversation, what else do you have to share?
Just say that don't be concerned, when making decisions or taking chances about what others will think. That you can waste a lot of time. I know I did. Wasted a lot of time in my life not trying new things because I was afraid of what others might think, or I was afraid of an impending failure that I was trying to predict that may or may not even happen. So instead, I would compel people to try new things, take chances on what it is that they want to do, and see where it leads. And worst case scenario, you learn something from it. So, that's what I would leave people with.
Thanks for being on today, Ray.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
If people want to find you, where should they go?
Yeah, you just check out my social media. Just my name, Ray Zahab. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook. All my pages have little blue checks beside my name, so you're at the little right spot there. If you look that up, and I also have a website, just my name, rayzahab.com, with links to all my social as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you. Thanks. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added value, please subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.